Game day brings its ups and downs, celebration and disappointment, anxiety and relief, friends and enemies. You can always argue over who should have won, but everyone can agree on great food. Appetizers, entrees, drinks, party platters, or even the taste of sweet victory. There's something for every season at Eat With Us restaurants.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Monday. It has been a little cool. This week is going to be cold, and eventually, if cold enough, that wintry weather is a possibility we're eventually tracking, but still have a few more days before then and now. Seasonably cold this week as temperatures typically should be pretty chilly. This is January after all, working our way toward late January, and so nothing unexpected there. More clouds in the sky, and here's the thing. When we're looking toward tonight, can we thin out those clouds enough to see an aurora or the northern lights? There's a pretty significant geomagnetic storm ongoing right now. We've had in the last couple of years some really great looks at it, some of them that you might only see once or twice in a lifetime. Is it really possible we could be looking at a third round of a decent shot of the northern lights? Some indications still say yes. We'll talk more about that here in just a couple of moments. And potential winter weather is ahead on the way for this weekend. Is it ice? Is it snow? Is it a combination? It's probably more than just rainfall at this point here. The cold air should be in place. The moisture should line up. But what remains? Obviously something of great contention and something that we will adjust that progress on as we go through the week. This evening, though, as you can see, looking at through the first 12, we're 39 at 6 p.m., 31 by 9. So if you are able to possibly see those northern lights for tonight, expect it to be pretty chilly out there while trying to view some of those. We're 26 by midnight, 23 by 3 o'clock in the morning, and down to 21 to begin early tomorrow. And not much of a wind, but that chill still absolutely a factor. Out in Adenton there, west of Starkville, our skies mostly clear, only a few high, thin clouds out there, and any glow toward the horizon due to the setting sun still at this point here, and a couple hours away before we'd have something more than that showing up. Again, 52 degrees right now, the temperature there in Oktibbeha County. We're coming in at this instant in Clarksdale, more clouds, and again, that's going to be one of the factors. Can we clear it out enough to be able to see up northward and try to catch those northern lights for tonight? 47 the temperature there in Clarksdale, and obviously chilly most locations, a little more of a wind chill there than some other spots, and then 41 feels like 36 right now in Crenshaw at this instant. Again, no precipitation out there. These are high and thin clouds. But, you know, are they thin enough? As we look at Mississippi Live, Mama Justice Doppler radar here, again, we're showing those clouds, and they are fairly thin, but still fairly persistent as well. You know, obviously a cold front coming through, high pressure and colder air coming in behind that, really largely the story. But I'm going to look for the visible satellite perspective. It doesn't always show up terribly well when we're kind of looking at this time of day as we're starting to get closer to sunset there, just kind of analyzing, getting those clouds. There's just enough there to still contend with this evening that I do worry that that could impede some of our viewing up northward related to this here. Hopefully that's not the case. Certainly the temperatures are continuing to be fairly chilly behind this frontal system here. As you can see, those the cold air, you know, centered up here closer to Springfield, Missouri, at least the closest batch of it. But you get up there toward the Midwest, Minneapolis, I mean, just to give you a quick taste of what they have up there, those are single digit and below zero temperatures up that direction versus 20s out there toward Kansas and teens as well. So the coldest is there yet to really truly go through. And you check out those wind chill temperatures, it's just brutally cold up to the north of us. Unfortunately for some folks that direction, yeah, negative 22 what it feels like for locations up there closer to the Great Lakes. So fairly rough with this. No precipitation. And again, when we look at futurecast, those clouds again high and thin, but maybe just thick enough. Here's the deal. We do have just kind of this little shield of cloud cover sliding in from the north. That's one of the factors here that, again, could potentially try to impede our view of some of those northern lights this evening. We'll talk to Gabe. He'll actually, behind the scenes here, as well as we'll kind of look at the snow potential, he's going to pull up the geomagnetic stuff from spaceweather.gov as we kind of talk back and forth about that here in a couple of minutes. But as you can see, as high pressure continues to settle in later on tonight, we should clear things out. So if it's possible, and it is possible, this geomagnetic storm could continue late enough to possibly have that opportunity to see the northern lights later tonight. most indications are it reaches its peak within the next few hours here. So crossing our fingers, hoping that's the case, that maybe we see more than that. Certainly, I think that's what a lot of folks are probably talking about in the chat right now here is bring those up there. Pontotoc, Winona, Boonville all watching us, Dumas as well. Appreciate y'all for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather this evening. But again, looking at dry conditions for tonight, I see that Eli is hoping it's snow. It's going to be a while before we have that. We are dry. We are mild-ish as we look toward the first part of this week in comparison to certainly any kinds of precipitation will be later this week. I say that we're not mild tomorrow morning. We're cold. 21 with a wind chill is going to probably be somewhere down there into the teens. It will be downright chilly. 30 degrees as we head toward 9 a.m., 41 by noon, and 45 degrees as we head toward 3 p.m. Again, that's below our normal, to where we should typically be for this time of the year. Coming up in 60 seconds, we're going to look at some other sky cams. We're going to talk to Gabe about that geomagnetic storm potential. And yes, we are talking snow. We're talking potential for maybe some mix that includes ice in there as well. I hate to say that three-letter word. It's too far out to really nail it down, but we'll start talking about how these components are coming into play, what we're thinking, a very early look on timing as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
A pinkish glow looking out of our camera in Ackerman right now. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather here at 5 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon, and again, a lot of folks hoping for that pinkish glow there toward the horizon later on this evening, with the potential for some northern lights, obviously. The camera with North Mississippi storm chasers there, mainly facing in a northerly direction at this point here, though I still look northwest with a lot of good glow there out of our camera there in West Point. Again, the Room to Room Weather Center, the thing we're tracking, two things tonight. The potential for, again, maybe a mix that includes some snow, some ice, some rain. All of that's still a possibility as we head toward this upcoming weekend forecast. But the potential for northern lights this evening, certainly one of the things that we are watching. I want to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, here. And Gabe, you know, these geomagnetic storms, we're kind of at a solar peak now, right? Where we're in the solar cycle, we're at the peak, and so we're just throwing these big coronal mass ejections toward the Earth, and another one of those coming and arriving this evening, right?
It's unreal how frequently these seem to be occurring, but yeah, skies right now lining up to where once that sun starts to set, hopefully getting a view of those northern lights into those late evening hours and working to those overnight hours as well. That predicted output right now is a G4 storm, which is on that severe classification. And what that means is we are going to get some of that visibility as far south as potentially here in Mississippi. Again, a lot of things do have to go right in order for that to take place, but it's enough to head outside, try and get a view of the horizon, and of course, looking north. Make sure to do that, and it's going to be more visible on those lower on the horizon rather than higher up into the sky, just because it's further away. But yeah, whenever we're in these severe categories, forgive me if I'm wrong, and Matt, feel free to chime in right here. I believe it was a G5, the last significant geomagnetic storm that we had. But right now it's a G4. That's what it's forecasted to be heading into the evening hours. And that last observed, one of the things that I had highlighted right there, it was observed that it reached G4 levels at 2:38 Eastern Time, 2:38 this afternoon. That means 1:38 our time. And it's been at that level for now several hours. And hopefully that carries over into when it gets dark, when it will actually be able to be viewed. And if those clouds hold off, I think that we should get a shot at seeing a couple of these. The North Mississippi storm chasers letting us know that they are out and about tonight. and hopefully getting a view of that. And Adrian, I know he'll be one of the first ones to let us know that he has a visual on those. But you guys feel free to do so as well. Submit those pictures through the Mississippi Live Weather app. We love showcasing that, and as soon as they become available, of course, we will cut in and let you guys know that it's happening. And if it doesn't happen, unfortunately, we'll be here at 10 letting you know, well, it seems like the peak is gone. But Matt, fingers crossed, but nonetheless, it's been so active that I feel like we're not appreciating how much of a rarity this is to be able to see these type of lights.
Really? Yeah, I think about it with my kids. It's like I've seen this, I mean, you know, about as many times in my life as they have. I remember one time growing up and then a couple times in the last year, and that's been about it. Yeah. So, you know, and they've seen most of the times that I've seen. That's just kind of rare. Appreciate that, Gabe. And again, we'll talk more about the winter weather potential coming up here in a couple of minutes. We bring it back here again into the room-to-room weather center. We're looking out at the sun there at the horizon near Aberdeen, going below the horizon. These clouds, even if we have a good geomagnetic storm tonight, I do think the clouds will filter it to a certain extent. So we might not have quite as good a viewing as what we had a little earlier on this year. Mama Justice Doppler radar, no precipitation, so at least no issues in that regard as far as this is concerned. Now, speaking to the winter weather here for a moment, we're talking, of course, the timeline for winter weather. We have to start paying attention to different time periods. You know, when the farther out you are, we're looking here 6 to 8 and 10 days out behind the scenes, just kind of looking at the overall pattern and the way things are developing. When now we're getting closer to this timeline here, where we're looking kind of consistency in our projections. How do they kind of align on that potential for wintry weather and what type of precipitation? We're starting to see more consistency that we are going to see something other than just rainfall, that the cold air should be in place. And the setup is starting to make sense to a certain extent. There are some still things that remain unpredictable about this. This is not our typical setup, and that makes it tricky for that reason. And so next couple of days, we're going to have a better general idea on precip timing, location, and the totals that we're dealing with here. And then when you get right there in the last couple of days, that's when we have the real specific timing and exactly, you know, are we dealing with canceled school, things of that nature. That's when we really start to hone in on that toward the last day or so. So we're still on the farther out time frame, and we'll look at positioning. We will look at our strike model. It does go that far out on the lower resolution version. We'll show you where it's placing that wintry precipitation. I think it's still aggressive, but you'll want to see it in a minute. First thing you need to know, though, as we head back to school tomorrow morning, hopefully you had a great MLK Day and a day of service and reflection. Today, you know, we were cold. Tomorrow we're going to be a lot colder. 20 for that drop-off temperature in the morning. Our IMPC school day forecast 38 by lunchtime and 45 degrees by the final bell, and a wind chill will be in the teens to begin the day. But no precipitation. Everybody going to school for tomorrow. As you can see here, again, those thin clouds, just maybe thick enough to cause some issues on trying to view those northern lights. As high pressure kind of settles in from the north, our skies remain mostly clear and conditions remain dry into this evening and tonight. So yeah, hopefully we have that viewing, but you know, there's enough cloud cover out there to cause some concerns there. So low temperatures tomorrow morning, 19 Water Valley and Bruce, 20 in Houston, typically should be about 33. So while we're cold, nowhere near that -4 record. You can see about 25 degrees above that. So chilly, but not ridiculously chilly. As we progress throughout your day on your Tuesday, as you can see, again, some clouds, but no precipitation out there. We are dry. We are mostly clear into the afternoon and into the evening. High temperatures expected to be for tomorrow in only the middle 40s. And by tomorrow evening, as you can see here, we're going to keep it, again, mostly clear and dry once again. So that really largely is the story for the next couple of days, as high pressure, you know, is really kind of scooped all the moisture out and pushed to the Gulf of Mexico. We've got to get it starting to return. And I do think we get a decent gap between systems here to get a little bit more moisture farther north. You can see Tuesday, though, we are still dry ahead of any of that. So Tuesday's highs, similar to where high temperatures, you can see they're coming in the mid 40s out there for a lot of spots for high temperatures for tomorrow in the afternoon, pretty close to our normal for this time of the year. So showed that model again back to back on the wider shot there. So Tuesday, as we continue into Tuesday night there, continue to have, again, mostly clear skies, and that'll probably set the stage for another cool start for early morning on Wednesday. Wednesday morning's lows down to about 30 degrees in Water Valley and Grenada, about 31, 34 Greenwood, and 35 Belzona, 36 degrees there in Greenville, with wind chills pretty close. You can see going back there and look at the actual temperature. And back to the wind chill temperature. We go back and forth between those a couple times. Yeah, this is pretty close to what the temperature is, but still slicing off a couple degrees, but not quite as cold as tomorrow morning will be. Progressing through your Wednesday, rain chances do pick up a little bit more, kind of ahead of our next storm system here. I'll widen this just a little bit. Give you a shot of, again, just what is mainly lighter variety showers. Again, returning ahead of this next storm system here. That'll have some showers and maybe a rumble with this down into Louisiana. You'll notice, though, only really greens and maybe some yellows for just a moment there, where maybe we have some oranges showing up. All that to say, not expecting to be overly heavy, not expecting severe weather out of this. There's just not enough time for the moisture to get back here before this front comes through the area. So temperatures only 49 in Water Valley, 52 degrees in Grenada, Greenwood, and Belzona for highs on your Wednesday, 55 Kosciuszko and Louisville. And again, a few of these rumbles, not impossible to have some of those out there. And though this gets a little heavier there, this is not overly strong. I'm going to bring Gabe back in here just for a moment. I want to talk about this here for a second because he's been looking at this as well. And Gabe, just kind of looking at the latest on this here, it does look like these are, again, not severe weather by any stretch of the imagination, right?
No, it's too cold, and you need that unstable air mass in order for severe weather to form. And so may get a rumble of thunder, but honestly, with the systems we've seen in the past couple of weeks, these have just been rain producers. And where the reds show up, some heavier patches of rainfall, but that's the extent and the impacts that we'll see.
So then that makes the real question, how much moisture really gets back in here? Because that's going to be the thing. Everyone's interested in the snow potential on this, and that comes back to, again, moisture return and is the cold air in place. And this really starts setting the stage for the cold air, right?
For sure. Yeah, all this moisture returning to the forecast. Typically, I mentioned a couple weeks ago that when it's 20 degrees in Mississippi, it's too dry of a forecast for winter precipitation to happen. Not exactly the case heading into this weekend. We see how much moisture that returns to the forecast. If that's able to sustain itself, temperatures would need to be a little bit higher. We're not talking 10 degrees, but, 25 to 32, somewhere around that range. And we're looking at a more significant potential as that moisture is in the forecast.
Well, see, and this is an atypical forecast, and we'll talk more about this here in a minute, especially at 6 o'clock. But I think in a lot of ways, where you have the cold air in place, you've kind of seasoned the ground. It's kind of like you have to get the grill up to the right temperature to really, do a good job. You don't just throw them on as soon as you put the flames on the grill. You have to get the grill up to the right temperature, and that's kind of the opposite of what we're doing here. We're seasoning the ground, getting it ready, getting it cold to accept some winter precipitation.
We're ready to grill the snow, Matt. Let's grill the snow.
Grill the snow. That's one way to think about it. Maybe not my best explanation ever on that. But yeah, certainly starting to set things up again with that next batch of cold air to come in. So 40s and 30s out there for low temperatures early Thursday morning. Again, actually placing us a little bit above our normal for this time of the year. And again, that north wind continues behind this as we stay dry into your Thursday, midday and into the afternoon here. So I kind of widen this thing here just a little bit more. Most of the showers just south of us. And this is where we start talking about the differences between this forecast and our typical winter weather forecast. So we have tons of cold air in place. But for this forecast, we're going to have little waves kind of working at us from the southwest versus one big, strong, giant low. And that extends the duration for the wintry weather as opposed to necessarily what we typically would see where it's one good big low pressure center coming in. So more on that here in a moment. But again, we're still ahead of that on Thursday, 50s. That's all we have out there for highs. I'm going to show you the 7-day forecast. Just wait. We're coming back to precipitation here in a second. So you'll note here, again, we're 51 for the high there on Thursday. But again, that cold air behind that continues to filter in. We're only 35 for the low on Friday. 46 by Friday afternoon, and then dropping down into the 20s and 30s as colder air comes in. And yes, Gabe even had to ask, are we going to go with that rain and snow mix there on the graphic, right? That's what we're going with in this case because we expect, again, it will be chilly. It will be cold enough to support some sort of a mix, and that's one of the things that we talk about now. So let's look at models that will probably be wrong, right? So don't take what you're about to look at the bank. Gabe and I talked about we need to have some kind of alter ego here, like Professor. What was it? Okay, I'm going to bring him in just for a second beside me, and then we're going to show the graphics here as we kind of go ahead for a second. Hopefully he remembers the name on this. What did we name him?
Well, I could pull up the messages, actually. I'd be honest, it went off the top of my head.
Professor Unpredictable, something like that?
Professor Unpredictable, yes. So, but yeah, okay, walking through the models, exactly what you were talking about and kind of assessing the the things that you might see on social media and kind of debunking that and explaining why, or explaining the potential as we move into the next couple of days. Because as you're talking about snowfall forecasting, we need that consistency. And as each model run comes out, we compare it to the last and kind of where things stand. And then we compare those model runs to other model runs and kind of see if there's any alignment in that aspect as well. And I would say that what they are lining up with.
So we'll talk more about that alignment stuff here in just a moment. But I want to show you, I have a raw model output put behind you there on Strike Model. So this is what we would call a deterministic model, meaning this is one example of what one model says could happen. And the next time around it might shift north. The next time around it might shift south, right? So these, come up with an answer. Basically give me an answer to the question, right? But if you change the initial conditions a little bit, that answer could change drastically. So one thing you will note, and the reason I'm so wide here, not specific, there's a couple things I want to show. First off, is I want to, now I guess I'll bring it back over here so I can pontificate on this, and I'll bring Gabe back here in a second. Okay, so see how big of an area this is? That tells you that our jet stream setup here is one where we just have just the right amount of lift at the right spot in a very, very large area. We don't have a tight low pressure center. So this is not our typical significant snow producer. This is the one where we're a lot more likely to eat crow on Sunday, right? Because it's what we would call channeled vorticity. And so we don't necessarily have a tight, strong, low pressure center that comes through and really, really nails it. So in showing you this, on the wide shot here, you can clearly see our area. And you can clearly see this shows Friday, and this is aggressive, okay? Very aggressive. But snow and a mix over us for a pretty significant period of time, and then another wave that tries to come in and does it again for a fairly significant period of time. Do I think we will see as much snowfall as this is indicating? God, I hope not. No offense to the I want snow crowd, but that's excessive. Okay, so do I think this is too aggressive? Probably. But there's reason to believe that we could be talking about a pretty decent snowfall chance. I don't know why I have that picture in there. I want to come back here to Gabe because we're going to look at this a couple different ways. But before we go to Gabe, I'm going to show you something here behind the scenes on what I'm looking at as well. So let me see if I pop this up here for a moment. And so this is kind of all my behind the scenes stuff. You see my little switcher here for a moment, and then I'm going to pop that down, and we're going to look specifically at this. Something that looks pretty similar there. So you might call these stamps. There's a bunch of different ways in which meteorologists refer to these, but this is different outputs from the same model. This would be the GEFS, and basically this is the ensemble version of the American model. One big takeaway I can show you here. First off, there are some of these. If you look real closely on that one, that particular one, which would be basically midnight, Saturday night, late Friday night, early Saturday morning, still has nothing in Mississippi. There are some that have ice and snow and rain. The big takeaway I think that you should look at out of this, rather than looking at what I just showed you, or looking at any other what we call deterministic model, we look for pattern similarities. And these, a lot of these, have snowfall and ice in our area, some kind of a mix. There's only, in looking at that, I'm gonna get my mouse out here because it might be the easiest way to point. Oh, my mouse isn't gonna show up. So that one there has very little snow. So out of that, that's 5, 10, 15, 20 members here, right? That one has none at that time. That one has none. And that one has none. So that's only 4 out of 20 that don't have some kind of wintry precipitation by midnight, Friday night, and early Saturday morning. Here's why that's important. That tells us that almost all our projections are in very good agreement that wintry precipitation is coming. But what type? Right? That comes back to how much cold air. I'm going to show you that again here in just a moment. And we'll dig a lot more into this coming up during our 6 o'clock broadcast. But this is where I'm going to bring Gabe back in as he looks at a different projection here. And again, you're looking at the forecast projection from the Euro here, right?
Well, so Euro, yes. Do you want me to pull it up behind me? Feel free to just turn your mic on and just let me know. But yeah, what we were going to be talking about is basically all of the different model outputs. And there's a few things that I want to look at here. And Matt, feel free to chime in at any point. But what we're going to be discussing is all of the different model runs. So if you look right here, we're basically taking this from the 17th at 0Z all the way up to the 19th at 18Z, which is the latest model run. And this is, of course, starting with the GFS. And as you can see, starting to uptrend a little bit whenever we're talking about those snowfall chances. And don't exactly look at the numbers, but look at that line that's starting to dip a little bit more towards the south, especially over these latest model runs. Well, the Euro kind of following that exact trend. That line starting to dip a little bit more south.
So go back just a second here. So let's not jump too fast past that. So basically what we're looking at is the same model run over and over again with newer information. And so the reason that's important is we look for consistencies not just on the same projection run slightly different ways, but if the same projection shows the same thing over and over again, it increases our likelihood of, it's the reason we know even if Alabama has one bad year, they're probably going to be good next year. It's because they usually are good, right?
Don't say that.
You can have one team that has a great year and never does it again. Kansas fan, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at here is we're trying to see is the same projection showing the same thing over and over again. And that's what you're looking at there.
Yes, and this is, of course, total snowfall. And so this is focusing on, the fluffy white stuff that we love around wintertime. But then we factor in a whole other element.
Even just the 33-degree temperature can mess up.
Exactly. But then we factor in ice. And ice is something that we're concerned with a little bit more towards the south. And as you can see, this potential was not overly high even 48 hours ago. So this is a new development that has been happening. And as each model run has come out, that consistency has been there that we look for whenever we're talking about pattern recognition. So as you look right here, very aggressive on the 18th at 12Z. We're talking a very high amount of ice down south, but again, this is all projection, and it immediately goes away in that next model run. A pretty significant difference right there. But as we head over the next few models, you can see how this has gradually started to return once again. And the big reason why is temperature. And Matt, one of the things that I was looking at behind the scenes is let me see if I can pull it up real quick, is temperatures. And temperatures at the surface, whenever we're talking about that weekend forecast, we're clearly well below freezing, meaning it's cold enough for that winter precip to happen if it were to all line up like you're talking about. But the big thing that we're looking at, and we can go into more detail at 6 o'clock about this, is going to be those mid-level temperatures. And if we pull up our 850 millibar temperatures, and it might take a second to load right here, so this might be something we discuss more at 6, it's warmer aloft. And so that's where we reach the potential of melting aloft, and then it falls as potential ice pellets or potentially a freezing rain at the surface. Yeah, something. That's why it was a mix.
It's something else, right?
Exactly. And so that's why it's a mix, despite those temperatures being below freezing all Saturday long, is because just because it's below freezing at the surface doesn't mean it's below freezing up at the top of the atmosphere. And so that's one of the things we'll break down coming up at 6. But Matt, a lot of questions still heading into it, but consistencies are getting more aligned as we head into this week.
Absolutely. I want to show you again the temperatures layered with that same model projection I showed you a minute ago. And listen, this is wrong. What I'm about to show you is for sure wrong. No projection knows what's going to happen this time out. No meteorologist, no projection, okay? So what I'm about to show you is wrong, okay? Once we establish that, now let's talk about it. So again, this is wrong. So notice how this is part of the why this comes in the way it does, right? That warmer air aloft that Gabe was mentioning. But notice at the surface, we have temperatures, at least initially here. This shows Friday, some snowfall out there. And again, too early to change any plans. I say that we've moved our Mississippi Live game of the week to Thursday because we're meteorologists and we don't need to take any chance at all. Anyway. But notice how we have temperatures up here farther north that are in the mid-20s versus only the freezing point farther south. Now, this is why this gets so kind of aggressive at trying to produce snowfall, is look how it drops the temperatures down here into the teens. I think, I'm going to bring Gabe back here as we're going to try to pop back and forth fairly quickly on this as opposed to neither one of us talking too terribly long on this. And actually, I'm just going to pop your mic up behind the scenes here while we're talking about this. So, okay, Gabe, so your mic is up. This seems aggressive teens for low temperatures there early Saturday morning. In fact, not just teens, low teens. Seems awfully aggressive, right?
Low teens for sure, maybe upper teens. We may reach a 19, but I would say that we stay in the low 20s to start out our Saturday.
See, so that first thing you need to know, again, like I said, this model is wrong. All models this time frame out are wrong. There's no one out there that has anything that's right. So the takeaway, the first reason I call this in the question is because of how cold this is. So why are we showing it? We're showing it because, frankly, you want to see it. And number two, we do think that we'll have some kind of wintry precipitation out there. But this is wrong. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. But the thing you see is that we're definitely really cold at the surface. The question is there some warm air aloft that takes all this blue and changes into pink? Probably is the answer. So my takeaway at this time frame out is that there's probably a pretty good chance that this is some kind of a mix that is a little less, more unsightly than I think some folks would like. So again, the folks there, talking back and forth there in the chat, of course, join the conversation on us on Facebook as well as YouTube and X there. But I'm going to come back to the graphic we started out here on our forecast timeline. We are past this where we're just straight up observing the patterns on this potential system. We are now into this zone here, that 4 to 5 day out time frame. We are looking for consistency. And we do see consistency in our projections that something wintry is possible out of this because, as you saw, most of our projections have enough cold air in place and moisture. That combination is going to give us something wintry. Does the setup make sense? Somewhat. There's still some things a little bit out of sync there. In the next couple of days, our ideas on the type of precipitation we're talking about and that timing, location, the totals will increase significantly more from where we're at right now. And then, of course, when you want to know, is it going to snow for me, we'll have a much better idea of that once we get down here in the last day or so. We still have a few more days before that is the case. So, again, we're very early, and we expect projections to vary tremendously over the next few days here. Of course, join the conversation on all those different types of social media there. And at 6 o'clock, we will look at some of the new things we've been working on. Snow Finder, Ice Finder, Rain Finder. We're going to look at the odds of each of those things coming. And you'll want to see how those are changing over the course of this week. That will lend itself very closely to what type of precipitation and everything you're going to end up seeing. Before we completely wrap up, I do want to touch on the Aurora one more time briefly here. I know Gabe had that. I'm going to give him a chance behind the scenes to get that back up here. He did have an update on that a few minutes ago, and I'll let him bring that up because, of course, that is the other main factor that we are watching that tonight, that potential that we could be talking about, the northern lights there. I know he had that browser up and ready to go there. So hold on just a second.
What was that website, Matt? Can you remind me? I clicked off of it.
You clicked off it? Oh,
I clicked off of it.
You gotta go crazy with the tabs.
Well, I wanted to conserve a little bit.
Spaceweather.gov.
Spaceweather.gov.
No, don't conserve. Keep. You're gonna want that one up. You're gonna want the other one up. We're gonna go back and forth between those all night long.
We'll let those populate in.
What was your new information that you had ultimately?
Well, Adrian, you guys might remember talking to him at our last Geomagnetic event because it's been so frequent, I guess, recently. But he's kind of an expert on these things and knows the background, the information that we need in order for this to become a little bit more significant of an event. And so he said, as of the latest update, that we're in an extremely positive BZ right now and the energy is getting deflected away from Earth. What that means is it's tough to see any of those auroras off there in the distance because the Earth just basically blocking it out. So we kind of need that to get into the Earth's magnetic field in order for us to see a little bit more of a visual on that. Fingers crossed it happens because right now, visibility as good as it's going to get tonight. So we're hoping that we can get a little bit of that view on the horizon. I recommend you guys maybe heading out once it reaches dark, once all those sunsets happen across North Mississippi, and then we could get a better visual on this, and you'll start to see some of those hues. Now, one of the notes that I will say, I know iPhone has it, but I don't know about other devices. They have a night exposure mode, and so whenever you pull up your picture or your photo app and you take your camera app, I should have said, and you take a picture, do it on that exposure, and you'll be able to get a visual on that. I hear Maggie talking about the forecast. Let me go fix that behind the scenes. Matt, if you want to take it back, you can. I don't know what that's even coming from.
7 and 7:30, and also at 5, 6, and
I don't know
There
where
we
that's
go.
coming from, Gabe, but that's
Well,
okay.
Maggie wanted to make an
What-
appearance. Team coverage, I guess.
Well, I guess we should, because she will be discussing the latest on this, of course, tomorrow, as she does every morning, starting at 6:30 a.m. As we get closer to this, you can check out her updates there, 6:37, 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather this morning. Okay, we'll see you coming up at 6 o'clock.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.